Hi, and welcome to heaven. This is Raquel Lausch
Julia Kibilda.
and today we have yet another movie review, which we're quite excited because we haven't done this in a really
Yes.
long time.
Yes, love and movie review. We have succumbed to the hype and viewed Challengers.
Yeah.
So you will hear our review. I'm not sure it will be what you expect, but
Yeah.
we shall do this.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very good public opinion. I saw this comment about the movie, which said everything is about sex except for tennis. And I was like, great premise, except challenges won't give you that.
That is true.
So this review, it's going to be almost like a rant. So bear with us as we swing the ball back and forth every time we we're discussing about this movie. But before I get into it, how are you, Julia? It's been a while, right? So how have you been?
I'm very good. Life is pretty good. I'm excited for summer. Sun is shining in London, getting into those holiday vibes,
Mhm. Very
positive
good.
vibes all along.
Very good. Lisbon is doing well. I am drinking a cider, which is
Oh,
very, rooftop bar kind of vibes, I would like to say. Not a rooftop bar, but more like a side view.
garden, outdoor space.
Yeah, that's what I'm channeling today.
Yeah, I'm drinking orange juice because I'm trying to convince myself that it's too warm to drink tea, but it really isn't. So
It's never too warm to drink tea.
for me, no. Also, I'm in England, so.
Always appropriate.
But yeah, honestly, I came into this movie with super high hopes, very high. I was like, my girl Zendaya, bring
Hmm.
it in. My guy Luca directing the movie. I was like, call me by your name, gods. Bring it on, bring it on. And then they didn't bring it on. And I was like yawning in the cinema.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think overall, I think everyone just says like, oh, it's amazing. And I'm just there like, meh. I think overall, if I had to like summarize this whole episode, I'm like, meh. I just don't get the hype. I did not think it was great. And in fact, maybe because of all this good things we are saying, it makes me like it even less because I'm like, it so did not deliver.
It's like super overhyped and I think it's worth noting like how it's been promoted for almost a year since like the first
Yeah.
trailer came out and people were like, wow, Zendaya starring in this like hot summer tennis movie with two guys, some threesome action, which actually doesn't happen, but anyways. So everyone was like, wow, this is gonna be some great sexual hot drama, but then it ended up being kind of flat. I don't know. I think maybe it's worth saying what the movie is about for those who actually haven't watched it and don't plan to.
Just to summarize it, the plot.
Yeah, so Challengers is a movie about tennis and a very intense love triangle. Surprise, surprise. So basically, the main character is played. I mean, to be fair, there are actually like three main characters. So
Mhm.
the main characters of the threesome. So it's Zendaya's character Tashi, and then two guys. I think one of them is Art, and the other one is
Patrick.
Patrick, yeah, exactly. And so Patrick and Art are like tennis partners when they're teenagers and they compete together in doubles. And then Tashi is this like amazing up and coming female tennis player. And
Mhm.
so they kind of meet when they're kids. And then Tashi marries Art and also becomes his personal trainer. And later, because the movie jumps back and forth between different timelines, which I think is very important. So like these pieces of information are not really revealed in like chronological order. But later you learn that like the both of the guys were kind of competing for her like attention when they were teenagers and had like a contest of like who's gonna become her boyfriend. And first, like the person who won was Patrick, and they had this like great sexual chemistry and also kind of used to fight a lot and compete a lot in like their relationship. But then it's kind of framed like his their argument is kind of the reason for her getting injured and having to end her like professional tennis career. And then she marries Art, who's like kind of more calm and relaxed. He's like less of a player, not on the field, but like with the girls.
Yeah.
Um, and he's more focused on his career, but then the career kind of flops. So like Tashi, like as his wife and trainer, is trying to like bring it back because she's really frustrated that he's not delivering and he's kind of, not focusing on sport as much as he should. So she enrolls him in this like challenger competition, which is kind of like a side private tennis competition. And it turns out that he's gonna, because she's like, oh, he's definitely gonna win because it's in some small town. They're not really that good players. And then it turns out that he's gonna compete against what's his name again?
Patrick.
It's too much. Like 3 names of 3 main characters is like too much for my brain to handle. So he competes against Patrick, and then it's kind of the game is like a metaphor for their personal fight and their fight for Tashi because Patrick still has feelings for her and tries to like sleep with her, blah blah blah. And she also kind of like has this chemistry so with him, which she likes with her husband, who she kind of thinks is a failure. So she lets it out on him. So that's like kind of the movie, the dynamics of the movie, let's say, like in a nutshell. So it's all about their like relationships and interpersonal like connections and character development and how that's like metaphorically also represented by the tennis game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think thank you for that extremely descriptive yet succinct plot. Like,
I
thank you so
was
much.
really trying to not go over it too much, like, because we could have spent like 40 minutes of like me describing the plot scene by scene, but I tried.
We'll do that after, pretty much. But I think straight away, just from that plot, for me, one of the things that did not work, for example, was actually the tennis metaphor. Just because it was too obvious and yet not explored enough. So I totally feel that their relationship pretty much mimics a tennis game,
Yeah,
you know? And if we look at it, it already starts putting out some questions because from the trailers and from all the promotions, you would think, and she does kind of have that play that Tashi, Zendaya's character, is like the mastermind and she's like controlling everyone. But if you look at it from a tennis game point of view, she's actually the ball swinging from one side and the other
yeah,
between the two guys.
yeah,
And I feel like all of this sets up for a very interesting premise about like the relationship between everyone
yeah,
mixed with the tennis. But then first they were way too obvious, like in the scene where she says, tennis is like a relationship. And I'm like, wow, okay, thanks.
yeah,
I'm not dumb. I could totally have gotten
yeah.
that.
Like, thanks for serving it on the platter.
Literally. And at the same time, they serve it in that way. So like, this is what we want to say because we
Yeah,
just
yeah,
told you. They perceive to never actually showing it. So I never felt that a relationship like a tennis game fully developed or fully explored with the film. So I leave a bit empty and a bit like, okay, and like I'm just like, okay, and that was nothing that really, I don't know, really fully explored what it's like to be in between two people and two loves almost.
Yeah, I think so too. I think a big part of that was the cuts and the time jumps. I feel like I get why they are done, and it's kind of to get that idea of like disruption and like discontinuity in the movie, which is kind of, mimicking this like hectic character of the game too, and like allows you to uncover information in a different way. But for me, like those cuts made it almost impossible for they didn't leave time for like proper character development. They would just kind of bring out the obvious, and for me, like I saw the first 2 clips of the movie and I already knew what was gonna happen in a sense because I was like, oh, okay, cool, they're married, they are friends, then this one is her boyfriend, but then she's married to the other one, obviously they're upset. It's
Yeah.
kind of like pretty much obvious, like the whole plot. Once you get to the middle of the movie, you basically already know what the plot of it is gonna be, and that's what for me it didn't leave a lot of room for mystery. Like there were little moments where that happened, like when Tashi sleeps with Patrick at the very end of the film, and he like makes the move with the racket to show
Yeah.
to Art that they actually slept together, which I think was one of the nicest moments in the movie, one of the most thought through elements
Yeah.
that wasn't like said explicitly and handed on a platter. I thought that was really nice. But other than that, the plot felt really flat for me, and I felt it only showed, oh, Tashi is the villain because she's making like she's the bitch, because not only is she letting like her own professional frustrations on her own husband, but then she also kind of abandons her fucking, like, disregards her whole family and her kid and her husband and sleeps with the other guy just because he's a better tennis player. That's kind
Yeah.
of like how they made it out to be. Like, it ended up falling really flat in that regard.
Yeah, and no, I completely agree on you on the on like the time frame and how they structured the movie with these backs and forths. Which I do kind of understand as to why, but it just didn't work. And I feel like why the reason of that like the ball in the racket movement that he does is so powerful is because it's the only time that we actually got some nuance in this fucking movie.
Yeah,
And
you
we
actually
actually,
get like that sense of continuity that he does it when they're
yeah,
teenagers, and then he
yeah.
repeats it again when they're like proper adults after not seeing each other for years, and the guy still remembers. And that's
Yeah,
like
there's like a
kind of,
proper chronology in
yeah,
it. You feel the time because, yeah, I think one of my problems is that these jumps did not allow me to see time in space in the sense of, okay, in one moment they're 30, the other moment they're like 20, and I can't feel that. I can't
yeah.
feel the
For me,
differences of character.
it was like they kind of signified it by Zendaya's haircuts.
Pretty much, like
She
everyone else
has
is just the
like
same.
longer hair when she's a teenager, and then they chop it off when she's like an adult. And I was like, that's it. Like, when you, for instance, compare it to like our other review of Priscilla, when the role is
Yeah.
also played by the same actress from a kid to an adult, that's completely incomparable. That characterization and attention to detail in how she's perceived is completely different to this film. I feel like that's really lost in the film, especially for the characters of the guys, because they just look pretty much the same. For Zendaya, like, they changed her hair and the way she dresses, but it only goes from flary dresses and teenage hoodies to vaguely elegant clothing because she's rich and she has a career now. And I felt that
Yeah.
was kind of like really basic.
Yeah, but I think that's comparing to Priscilla's is because I feel what mastered like her character was really a character development that we did not have in these three protagonists. I did not feel that any of them grew since they were 18 until they were 31 or whatever.
No, they're
Like
kind of the same.
they're literally the same. Like they're the same people with the same behaviors, the same type of decisions. Like they're just exactly the same. Like I don't look at Zendaya's character as an adult and thinking that she's an adult. Like I look at her
Yeah,
and I'm
she's
like,
kind of like
she's still the same as before.
yeah, she's kind of like a petulant teenager, and that's about it. And fair enough, that's like a point you can make in itself, that in a sense they haven't changed, that they're still the same. But I feel if you decide to go down that avenue, you could have like push it further and even emphasize it more how they're trying to fit into their adult lives, even though they're kind of still, those dynamics are making them come back to their teenage selves. Because that often happens, that you're an adult and you have your work and life, but kind of meeting people from your past and being with people from your past makes you kind of come back to your past self. And I felt like if they wanted to explore that, it could have been done a lot better, and instead it kind of sat like in between.
Yeah, I think the only one that made sense for that to happen was definitely Patrick because I really felt that sure he does have affection and some kind of love for Tashi, but I think the fact that, after that whole accident happened and they just all kind of broken off, and he was separated from the other two, I think his craving for Tashi wasn't just sexual or love-like. I think it was really a crave for the older times because while they both, of course, not completely happy, but they both further on their careers. Patrick is like a good for nothing. He just completely like falls down.
Yeah.
He's like kind of not, I don't know if he's like exactly poor, but he's like struggling. He is a professional tennis player, but with no success whatsoever. And I feel like he's craving for Tashi and getting inside of that triangle again. It's also his way of coming back to those simpler times. So I think that's
Yeah,
like
and kind of like reliving his glory days in a sense.
yeah, pretty much. And I think we could like glue it well with my problem of the character development and stuff, where I think their relationships to one another also wasn't fully explored. And I feel everything that I think about that is remotely interesting about the way they interact is not really within the text. It's like me supposing things. There is this interesting thing about control. Again, like we think that she's the one who is controlling everyone, and at some degree she is, but at the same time, I feel Patrick does try to control her or get control of his life through her by always pursuing her
Yeah.
throughout the years, you know? And then she lost control of her life after the injury, and instead she controls Art. And then Art, who technically won everything, became the professional pro that she could never be. He became the guy with the girl that the other guy could not. Yet he does not have the love, he
Yeah.
does not have the recognition. He's just there, so he has no control for what he does because everything is done by her, technically.
Yeah, he's kind of controlled by both of them in a sense because he's controlled by his own insecurities that are kind of due to his relationship with Patrick from the past of like him being better than him all the time.
Yeah,
And then he's controlled like in real time by his wife that kind of emphasizes that feeling. So in a sense, his own insecurities that are emphasized by like the other two characters are like
yeah,
stopping him from actually
yeah.
being successful in his life.
And I actually feel like one of the other reasons why I don't feel this is a very strong love triangle, again, from the exploration and development of it, is just because I don't believe in anyone when they say they love each other, because I could never see that love to fruition. So first, I always felt that Tashi never liked Art. Like she never
Oh,
liked
she
him.
never liked him. She was always into Patrick. And even
Yeah,
later when like they aren't together, she never says I love you back. Like he says I love you and she says I know,
yeah.
which is like clearly like it's shown that she doesn't have the same affection. So it's almost he's the one who helps her, so she naturally ends up with him just because she can exploit him better.
No, that's pretty much it. Like that was my first thoughts when I was watching the movie. I was like, oh, the things did not work out with Patrick because they're actually the same person, except she has way more ambition than Patrick has, but they're both inherently very good at tennis. They both have like an inherent talent for it,
Yeah.
but they both have passion, but not for the same things. And she has ambition, which Patrick does not have. He doesn't really care.
Yeah.
He's kind of a nihilist in a sense. And I think that's why they shocked, because they are exactly the same type of person. That's why they're so drawn to each other. While Art, I mean, the poor guy, he's just kind of there. And I also feel like it's a bit dismissive, because that's the whole reason why I think this love triangle could have been actually so interesting, but never really went there with the explorations. First, because of the characters never being solidified with their own personalities, and then they interacted with one another. I feel like it would have been so much better if, for example, they also had developed the guy's friendship slightly homosexual relationship, because there is a lot of tension, but to me it feels a bit like queer baiting, because you
Yeah,
have
when
a
she
lot of
makes them
references.
kiss, and
Yeah,
when
it makes them
like
kiss.
when they get super close together, they're almost about to
Uh,
kiss, like in the cafeteria and
yeah,
stuff.
with like eating churros.
Yeah,
Well, when they're in the sauna and he's eating a banana, smirking at him, and I'm like, this Patrick wants to fuck Art so much more than he wants Tashi. Like, this is unbelievable. I cannot deal with this. And even there was also a scene of Patrick, I think, in like a locker changing rooms
yeah, yeah,
area,
yeah,
when he's on the dating app, and
yeah.
then
He
he's like
swipes on
passing
the man.
girls, and then he stops on a man and he's like, should I not? And then he just like, no, no, no. So you can see there's all these references to their possible
Yeah.
homosexual attraction, and that would make that would make it a full love triangle instead of being the stereotypical two guys towards one girl or two girls towards one guy. You would have an actual triangle that goes like all the way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that
I
could have been
think that
like
was so
more.
wasted.
And instead, they just kind of stuck to this trope of like two guys competing all for a girl and breaking their friendship. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like all the kind of most of the references as a frame were like super basic. First, as you mentioned, when she says, oh, tennis is like a relationship. And then when she says at the beginning, jokingly, like, oh, am I gonna be a home wrecker here? And then she actually is. And she says
Yeah.
that at the end too. And it's like, you handed the whole movie to people on a platter. And I think a big fault for that is how the time jumps are structured. I feel they revealed too much too soon. in the
Yeah.
film because I do get why they did them. So, but maybe they could have been gradually like further down, that you get more background or more forward information later on in the movie. And instead of you just sitting there knowing exactly what happened and just learning how it happened, which I don't love as a premise.
Yeah, no, me neither. I think this movie would have actually worked out much better if it was a simple chronological telling, like from start to finish, because I think you would feel the time and the development of their relationships so much more. You would feel her going from one and the other. And I mean, in my view of the film, if they also would be one together, like him, and then her coming through and mixing all this up as well, make them question their sexualities. Yeah, I think the reason why I'm so frustrated of, oh, I just didn't like the movie and move on with my life is just of all the wasted potential. Like I was just so, I think I got blue balls off this film.
I know, and I think it's also important to say that for me, the movie was beautifully shot.
Mm,
Some of the scenes are really, really, really beautifully executed with different POVs and color schemes and composition, artistically wise. And for me, that was the strongest part of the film, together with probably the music, which I think is also quite an interesting music choice.
I was not a fan of the music,
I
but
really like the music.
I,
But not how it was structured, because it would always come in the same moments, which made it like a bit pastiche-like, because it would always come in those tension moments or like that. So it was kind of almost like ironic. I don't know, like it was almost, yeah, like a
yeah.
sarcastic way to say like, oh, this is a tension moment coming now.
Yeah, coming, pay attention. It is happening right now. That was my problem because I remember being in a cinema with my friend, and I don't know exactly which one it is anymore, but there's this scene where, yeah, we have this slow zoom. I think it's to Tashi, and she's just like dreaming the ball, and it goes with that music like dun 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 dun, dun, and then it
Yeah,
just stops. I don't know why. It stops. We look someone else, and then we come back to her, dun, 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 and I
I
just
know.
I laughed because it just like stopped. I'm like, I'm just laughing at this point. I'm not taking this seriously.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it was a choice to get the reaction. I don't know, but I
But
didn't.
in the choir, the moment where she goes meet Patrick, like the day before the final match, they have a choir of children singing Happy New Year. Like, I'm sorry. What? This makes no sense.
I
Don't
don't
you?
remember a choir of children singing Happy New Year, man.
They were when I think either when she's with him or when she comes back from meeting him, she's back at the hotel. I just see the soundtrack is like a big choir of children singing Happy New Year. I swear.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look back into this. But yeah, I quite like the electronic music. But yeah, what I was saying is that the movie is beautifully shot, and I feel like that's part of why I was so excited for it. And then the plot just didn't deliver at all. I felt I was talking about this with someone else too, and we were like, oh, like the characters are just, you don't attach yourself to any of the characters, which I think is also slightly problematic because again, none of them are fully explored. You just get three characters that are mildly developed. So in the end of the film, you have no particular feelings for any of them besides the fact that you just mildly dislike all of them. And that's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, and I think in fault in that is that their lack of development and sense of personality or even just a basic sense of character. Someone pointed this out, which I think is quite true, is that there is a very small mentions, but perhaps not enough of their class backgrounds.
Yeah,
And I think you don't need any social commentary in this film. It's not necessary. However, I think you do need a bit more presence of it because they kind of live in this bubble socially. There's nothing going on in the world besides this,
yeah,
which is okay. But I feel there was a lack of social class mentioned just to reiterate what which character is. Because one of my problems, like I really wanted to like the characters, but one of my problem is that I don't have a why. Like, why is Tashi so arrogant? Why is Tashi so manipulative? Why is she so obsessed with tennis? And the reason is because of her social background. Like she got into tennis, she got very good at it, and that's what made her and her whole family
That's what it
financially
depended on
well.
it.
Yeah, she depended on it. That's why Patrick and Art didn't weren't as obsessed. They saw it more like, oh, it would be fun if we could make this as our jobs instead of an actual job, right?
Yeah, especially
Because they come
Patrick.
from a privileged position. Tashi, no, Tashi is so ambitious and driven because thanks to this, she was able to like move forward with her life and like social classes. And even in the beginnings when they're still young, blah blah blah, they keep saying like all her brand partnerships, Nana, and they keep saying, oh, she is the model for an inspiration for younger girls.
Yeah,
So there is a responsibility on you, especially when you're 18, of holding all of this. So of course, tennis becomes extremely important to you. And she does technically have other associations and foundations that she formed. However, there's not enough mentions of all these situations on each character's social background that would help a lot to understand how they are. Like Patrick is a nihilist who doesn't give a shit about life because he never have to
yeah, he
think about
comes from like
life.
a privileged family and then he just kind of fails in life, but he still always has something to like fall back on.
Yeah. So I think that would help a lot to understand why they act the way they act, why they make certain decisions, why they behave like that towards one another. Why does Tashi wants to control everything? Because that's how she got away with life in the first place. She's a fighter. But we don't see that in the movie. We're never explained, we never show. So of course we're never going to feel any sympathy. So does Tashi makes bad decisions? Yes. But perhaps we'll feel some sympathy for her if we understood where she comes from. And same thing for the other two guys. Perhaps we would be more sympathetic towards them if we understood a bit more about their personalities and where they come from as well.
Yeah, that's very true. Again, I felt like everything felt flat.
Yeah, yeah. I think we talked very briefly as when we finished respectively watching the film separately, how it's aesthetics with no substance.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty for nothing. And I think that's why it's so successful too, because at the end of the day, it's just a movie, but it's kind of made into something that it's not. I heard this girl saying that it's the movie of the year, the next big thing, the next Call Me by Your Name. And I'm like, no,
No,
it's
it's not.
not. It's not comparable at all. Like, it's just a film. I'm literally gonna forget about it in like 2 months. It didn't make any impression on me whatsoever. And I don't think it's that great at all. And I think its success is largely due to a great promotion and a great aesthetic value. And the whole tennis core, this allure of tennis as this like glamorous game and such passionate and sexual for some reason. Um,
Honestly, I read this quote which I think sums it up very well because people call it's the sexiest movie of the year. And I'm like, bro, I felt absolutely nothing. I was so dry by the end of it, like nothing open, nothing dripped. And the sexual tension was so like nothing, like it did not arouse me. And this person, I think I don't remember her name, but she wrote an article for The Guardian and I took off this quote. I think it's great. She goes, the sweat drips like cum, but there's no finesse or foreplay, no sign of a change up or B game. And I have to agree, that sweat was the main paid actor and did not
honestly,
fulfill the sexual part of
Honestly,
part.
it did not. Like, I wonder how many spray bottles they had in action during filming, just like spraying it all on them so they would have like this dewy, sweaty skin all the time.
Yes, yes.
But no, I completely agree. It's just kind of as you said, it just starts, goes on, comes
I
to a
just finished it.
conclusion, and then you never finish. You're just okay, this was
Okay.
fine.
And it kind of finished as it started. Oh, they're friends and there's a girl they both like.
Yeah,
Yay.
yeah, exactly.
Another thing I wanted to say is that I think the film tried so hard to be sexy, but it desperately wanted to be emotionally packed,
Yeah.
yet it just did not deliver. It's like there is no balls, it's just rackets hitting the air. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like people say, oh, this is so, sex, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but then if you focus too much on the lust, you don't understand why people lust after each other after all.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that, like, I think, yeah, a good comparison would be Call Me by Your Name if people are actually comparing it because it's the same director. in Call Me by Your Name, the romance is so beautifully explored because you can see how the characters lust for each other and kind of slowly tiptoe around each other, and then it kind of blooms and they, start openly exploring it together. And it's
Yeah, yeah,
like a feeling and like deeper emotion, and that's like really well explored, whereas here you just kind of like they're all horny but no one gets
yeah.
off.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I feel like I'm sure that's not true, but it does feel like you don't understand sex almost, or you don't understand sexual tension almost, of like what makes someone attracted to someone else is not just because they're hot, there's so much more that goes into it. And as I was saying about that thing of Patrick just wanting to control his life by pursuing Tashi, that makes way more sense. So like when they go meet for the last time before
Yeah.
the big match, the big game. For me, when she arrives in the car, and I think the first that when she says like let's talk, blah blah, and he goes, "Oh, so you didn't came to fuck?" And I know they're just trying to be like this like very casual thing of way of talking, but I was like, that's not Patrick, though. I feel like that's not what he wanted either. You know, there is obviously like attraction, and I'm pretty sure that, yeah, he still wanted to make out with her, have sex with her, whatever. But that cheapened the character so much because the attraction he felt for her, it was not just purely because of her body. There
No,
was
he
much
was
more
like
to that.
in awe of her, like when they were first teenagers. He was like, wow, this girl is like
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, when you lust after someone, even physically, there's something, again, there's the substance, right? There's something that fills it. What fills his desire for Tashi is much, much more than just physical. And I feel like they really shipped the character with just that saying. And I was like, okay, you know what? At this point of the movie, why am I even trying to get some nuance or proper like exploration of sex and relationships on this? Because they just shipping it out completely. And honestly, for the first go, I thought that I was the only one who had this opinion. Thankfully we have the same. Otherwise, this episode would be just us fighting with one another. But I saw that, well, from the reception of the film, that most critics and reviewers who write articles for major outlets, magazines, blah blah, they actually share the same thoughts as us. They also feel like the film just did not deliver everything that it's set up to do.
Yeah.
However, all the public really loves it. And I don't think it's like one of those situations like, oh, it's so popular and that's why you like to shit on it. Because all the critiques, I think, we have are like quite valid. So I guess now we are considered to be renowned critics because we disagree with everyone else.
I
Um,
guess.
but perhaps I think it's because we saw all the potential that it could have been, while most people are just blinded by how hot the actors are.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, like
So
I was really hoping for some proper exploration of their relationships, especially from the trailer, which is very heavily focused on the triangle threesome action. And I was like, there's bound to be a threesome in this movie, and there wasn't. And that's all I'm about to say because I was really hoping that they would push it, and it was so close. And they were like, no, blue
see, it's
balls,
blue balls.
blue
It's blue
balls.
balls.
I was like, no way. That could have been explored so well, and a great hot queer tension, exploration,
Yeah,
their own sexuality as teenagers, kind of drama, but it wasn't. So
it wasn't. So now I think like if we have to give sexual like comparison to this movie, mine is you're in your room, you are with desires, you are masturbating, and for some reason you just never come. And then you're just there, seated in your bed, looking at the ceiling, extremely frustrated, and you're going to be frustrated for the rest of the day. And that's how I felt. This is what this movie is. It's like this situation.
that is very true. Yeah, I agree. Well, I don't really think I have anything to say besides the fact that I'm disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess a final thought for me is that, yes, okay, tennis is like a relationship and it is the big metaphor for sex in the whole film because we never see it besides them playing tennis. But what about sex being a metaphor for tennis, though?
Yeah, exactly.
What
What
about
about like
having,
love being a game and like the
yeah,
pursuit being a game,
yeah,
which is kind of started at the beginning, but then kind of flops.
it never follows up. Like you lay the cards, you never play with them. That's literally it. It's just so frustrating. I think like my only last thing, sorry, I said last thing for the second time already. But I think the only last thing that I really want to say, which is probably the least fair criticism I have, because I am aware that this is not what the movie was about, but I was actually a bit disappointed on how little we saw her specifically playing tennis. I would really have liked her to see more. Perhaps I was actually quite sad to see that she didn't progress in her career as a tennis player and be the best of them all. And I will say that yeah, this is very personal to me, perhaps, and it's definitely not a critique on the film because that's not what the story is about. But I just don't care about these little white boys. I don't care the story of them. I care about her. I was just like, I really just want to see her story, actually. I just want to see, just like she said, some good fucking tennis, but played by Tashi Duncan. I just want to see her succeed, struggle, I don't know, wanting to give up, again, her forces again, and just triumph. Like, I want to see that story. And I think it's also because nowadays we've seen also a growth in spotlighting female athletes. They're getting more coverage and more
Yeah.
spotlight and more recognition that I really felt this is the story that I actually wanted to see more. I just really don't care for more boy stories because
Yeah,
at the
I
end, the story feels like them instead of their three, but just them two in the end. And that's kind
Yeah,
of how I feel.
that's a good point. I think that's one of also the things that I thought it would be from the trailer, but it wasn't because I thought from the trailer that it would be really her focus, that she would be the main character of the trio and then they would become the supporting characters, whereas they're kind of all leads, but in the end none of them are. And in the end she's kind of reduced to this upset and bitter woman who's just really controlling and a bitch and super close-minded because her only focus is sport. And I think that's such a flat and insulting representation of her because instead of exploring her actual feelings after the injury,
Yeah.
it just kind of dams down to that and how that like makes her go with art because he's just less successful at the time and is like there for her in a sense, and so she doesn't feel as bad. And I don't know, I just feel like it makes it very anticlimactic. And as you said, I think maybe it would be better if she didn't get the injury so early on, or if the movie was explored in a different way, more through her eyes rather than her through their eyes and their fight for her.
Yeah, 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 because I don't know.
Yeah,
I
because
want to see her
you,
play. That's all I want to see. That was like the exciting part that I was actually very into. I was seeing this woman who it is lust after, but is lust after for her assertiveness, for her determination, for how good she is at her sport, besides being beautiful. But like what is attractive is how she positions herself, right? So
yeah, her drive and her determination.
yeah, I want to see that more. I don't know. That's what I wish more to see. I don't care for threesomes if they're not well made, and if we cannot have them well made, then I'd rather have her story.
Yeah, that's very true. Again, it's kind of a triangle, so it's really hard to balance all of their relationships because each one of them has a relationship with each other and then they have the relationship together as a free. And
Mhm.
throughout the story, I think the relationship of them two is highly overpowering against her relationship with each one of them and her relationship with herself, first and
Yeah,
foremost.
yeah,
And so it kind of starts and ends with them because
yeah, pretty much.
it's their relationship that comes to closure in the end. And it's kind of their dynamic. And she's just there on the sideline as the prize or the pawn in the game, the ball in the game, as you said.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. It's pretty, but that's about it.
That's about it. I mean, if you want to clean your eyes with some hot people jumping around. Oh my God, I just remembered something. When the two guys specifically, when they're like playing on the match, they are moaning. And I was like, this is so obvious, but also I'm kind of here for it. Especially Art. He was like,
Yeah, but
uh,
um, to be fair,
uh.
that's what a lot of tennis players do, actually.
But
Like,
it was so funny, Julia. You're not
I know,
understanding.
but like that's what they actually do. Like if you watch tennis, like especially like Maria
Oh,
Sharapova, she's like one of the tennis players, and she has like this very specific one, and she's always like, uh, and I'm always like, girl, okay, we get it. I get you.
maybe that's what
Maybe
maybe
that's
that's
what
what
inspired
inspired.
your movie, you
Yeah,
know?
Because like all these tennis players are moaning, perhaps, and there you go. Challenge
And
was
that's
born.
how challenges can come to life. And with that, I think is a good moment to end this review and
Uh,
our thoughts. That sums it up pretty well.
yeah,
Not
let us
so
know what you
intentional
think.
after all, you know?
Yeah, yeah. We just did not get it. Julia, we just don't get it. We don't get tennis, we don't get the film. So, I guess let us know what you thought about it. Who's your favorite guy or girl? Who's your favorite of the triangle?
Yes.
Mine obviously is Zendaya, lol. What is the competition? And then
Come on.
and yeah.
It's Zendaya.
Yeah, I mean, she literally came and said, I have no competition. I might as well break my knee because otherwise they have no chance. Anyway. Okay, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.